America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No, it was me. I said one meeting instead of one nation.
Oh.
I just had so many meetings today.
I thought maybe I had the way on plan.
No, it's me.
Okay.
All right, we are calling our statutory board meeting to order, and we've done our pledge, and roll call is 4 board members are present in person and 1 is on the phone, and we have a director report.
We're going to begin with Mrs. Wells, and she is going to review the information about the levy. You have a copy of it in front of you. It's highlighted. The yellow side, we're going to start, there's excess, and then the back page of it is the other, general. So if you have a copy of that, it's right behind us. It's right, yeah, another order.
Does this have to be one?
Yes.
Yes. At the very bottom of it, Jason's going to be the sound guy.
Okay. And Mr. Nelson, we understand that you have a copy of it.
I do.
And yes, April was very sweet today, wasn't
That
she?
is her.
Oh.
Okay, it's on, thank you. So, like Mrs. Hott said, in front of you is a copy of our levy order and rate sheet. And so, it's not any different than what we did with the schedule proposed. The only thing different is the date and the top of it says levy order rate sheet, and it was approved by the state auditor's office and tax office. So our regular levy is going to be $6,056,423, and our excess levy is going to be $4,738,381.
And those numbers are highlighted in that one.
Great, so the superintendent is going to request that we officially enter the levy rates and order. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Reed makes a motion, Mrs. King will second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. We will now adjourn the statutory meeting at whatever time.
6:03.
6:03 PM. Do we have a motion to adjourn? Mr. Hall makes the motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Reed will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion, we're adjourned. Now we will call to order the regular meeting of the Ritchie County Board of Education. We will forego the pledge since we just did it. Roll call is still the same as in the last meeting. And next we have an agenda to approve.
I would ask that you table or remove J2,
Because we have none.
because we have none that have resigned after. And L1 and L2, we have no supplements or transfers today in minutes. Ask that you approve everything else as written.
Do we have a motion to approve the agenda as noted? Mr. Reed makes the motion. Mrs. King will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes. Next, we have the minutes from the regular meeting on March 24th. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Hall makes the motion. Mrs. King will second. Is there any discussion about the minutes? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. We have no delegations present, so next is the superintendent's report and academic updates.
So I have a number of things this evening. The first thing in front of you, you have a binder. It's got the black around it. This is the final report that we got from our auditor. And if you look on page 79, which is near the back of it, it says financial statement findings, no matters were reported. Federal award findings and question cost, no matters were reported. So that tells you once again that our audit is a clean audit. And I looked it up, Mrs. Wells has been with us a little over 8 years, 8.8 something years at the end of this year. But within that time, we have had no findings in our audits for 8 years. So I want to congratulate her and her staff for the processes we have in place.
Fantastic job.
That is awesome. Well done.
So I wanted to point that out to you and let you know that you do have that information in front of you.
Does she get pizza parties?
She gets a pizza party.
should.
He's Chinese.
That's the beginning thing that I want to talk about. A couple things I just want to mention. Our summer program registration, it's the first time we've done it online. And the first day after the all-call went out, we had in the outdoor rec program already like 70 kids. And so we are now up to well over 150 registered. So at some point there will be a cutoff, but we will be able to make the cutoff based on, as the document said that we sent home, based on when they register. We've had a number of kids also apply to be in the academic program, and we have 35 staff members already registered for APL. So we feel like we're going in the right direction to have students as well as adults in the programs this summer. I just wanted to give you that update. If we have anyone that hands out information in our school, the law is that I just make you aware of that, and the Girl Scouts have asked to hand out a flyer that I put in your packet, and it's for some meeting that they are having in the cabin. The other thing that I want to point out to you, originally this was scheduled for May, but it has been moved to April 29th. You have a flyer in front of you, it's called AV Nation. You see the right color paper? If you look at this, it's occurring at Ritchie County High School. It was going to be on the next agenda, of course, for your approval to let you know that we're having it. Will still be on the next agenda, but it has been moved to where it's April 29th. One of the reasons I want to make you aware of it is they will bring a helicopter and land it on our school campus, and I thought somebody should be aware of that. And so, isn't that exciting? And it's a good program for kids to learn about different things in aviation, different jobs, different careers that are available. And it will be at Ritchie County High School on Tuesday, April 29th. And so I wanted to make you aware of that program.
Mrs. Andrews must be very excited.
Mrs. Andrews is
I'm
over the top.
I'm excited. There are a lot of careers up
Absolutely.
in Clarksburg, Fairmont, in aviation. Kids don't realize.
And I think this will help bring some of that to them, including like road information and pilots as well as mechanics. And so we are looking forward to having this at Ritchie County High School. The next thing I want to point out to you is in your all's packet or laying on your table, I have given you a copy of next year's, just a draft for your board meeting and board meeting regular schedules. I didn't put it on tonight's agenda to approve it, but I'm giving it to you to look over to see if there's anything that just stands out to you that says, before we get this approved, we may need to make a change. All of these fall on the second and fourth, of course, second and fourth Monday, except for unless it falls around a holiday, and this meeting that is scheduled in April, which is required by law to be at this time. So I just wanted to share this with you, and it will be on the next board meeting's agenda for approval, but not tonight, because I'm gonna give you time to look at it. Does that sound fair?
Yes, sure. I will be out of town July 14th, just a heads up.
So, we can. And if she's the only one, then we can move on, but if two other ones are on vacation, then we've got some issues. So that's kind of what we need to make sure that we don't fall up in that area. So I just wanted to point that out as well.
Normally it's the second. Yeah, I'm just gonna go ahead and tell you, I also have a problem with June 9th.
Right.
Next year, June 9th, or this year?
This year,
This year,
June 9th.
okay.
But, July 14th, those are just two problem dates for me, so I'm gonna make sure that.
We gotcha.
What was the other one?
June 9th and July 14th, those are problems for me.
So the next thing I would like to point out to you is you have a paper that looks like this. It kind of looks like the elementaries, but it's not as brightly colored. And this is what I shared with you that will be next week. We have Ritchie County High School coming. And Ritchie County High School's information is a little different than the elementaries and their expectations and things that they're judged on. And some of the stuff Chris will talk about, Mr. Wells will talk about, will be different than what you see at the elementary. And I just want to point out a few of these things, and then you also will have one of these in front of you next week as well. So at the top, their standardized test that they use is called in the fall, they do the PSAT, and that's for 9th graders. And then at the same time, for 10th and 11th graders, they do the PSAT, which is also the NMSQT, which is a national merit test. And it's run at the same time. From that, they're getting data back from those tests, because what the high school, what they look at for their assessment is the standardized assessment, which is done, it was just done this past week at Ritchie County High School. 11th graders are the ones that are assessed, and it is actually the SAT. So the first two tests are like preliminary tests that we take, and then we take the standardized test in the spring with 11th graders. When he talks about benchmarks or levels, like with elementaries, they talk about tier 1, tier 2, 3, and if they're above or on. When you look at the SAT, their standards of measurement are meets, exceeds, approaching, and not yet approaching. So when he has charts, that's kind of the area that you will see his information in. Other things, just we're going to go straight down. You might have some questions from people in the community, or just for your information. Ritchie County High School has a Letterman Award for academics, and that tells you the expectation for the Letterman Award. And then also Promise, and the Promise Scholarship is tied to SAT or ACT scores. And so I gave you some information on the Promise. It's kind of a general, but you can go to the website and see more information. It basically gives students $5,500 annual scholarship for tuition and fees at West Virginia colleges or universities. And the minimum requirements is they meet graduation requirements. They have at least a 3.0 GPA, and they have a SAT score of 1080, but they have to have a 510 in ELA and math. That's the minimum in both of those. And then the ACT has 4 sections, and they have to have a 21 composite and a minimum of 19 in English, reading, math, and science. So that kind of just gives you a summary when he talks about, we have X amount of Promise winners. That's what he's talking about, that they've reached these expectations. And I think that's important to know a little bit more about that. The bottom section, that looks familiar. Attendance is attendance, and it's measured the same way no matter what grade level. The biggest change for high school is down the left column. They get graded a lot on their balanced scorecard on cohorts. And when they talk about a cohort, it's a group of students that enroll in 9th grade at the same time. So this group of kids started as 9th grade, they're now a cohort. Now they look at them and they say, okay, how are you doing with your 4-year cohort? And that's a group of students that graduate in 4 years. So they started as freshmen together, they graduate together. So then they give you a percentage of what your cohort has done. Then they look at 5 years. Okay, I didn't make it in 4 years, but I started with this group, but it took me 5 years, and they give you a percentage of that. Another thing they look at for high schools is graduation requirement, which is the percentage of students that earn the high school diploma by the targeted graduation date. But they also do and we perform really high on this, and it's called On Track to Graduate. It's where they look at the percentage of sophomores in a particular grade that are on track to graduate in 4 years. So they you start as a freshman, but then they reevaluate you as a sophomore, and we get a score on that to make sure that you have kids on track to graduate, and then you see how you do with your 4- and 5-year cohorts. And then the last thing that they look at for a score for the high school is called post-secondary achievement. And it's the count of 12th grade students accomplishing one of the following before they leave high school. So it's 1 or more AP course with an A, B, or C in the course, a college dual credit course with an A, B, C in the course, or the career technical education program of study, and they meet the workforce entrance score. And if they meet any of those, then the high school gets a score for their 12th graders, which gives them a post-secondary achievement that you are looking at preparing your kids either, whether it's college bound or with CTE, some kind of certification. So when Mr. Wells does his presentation next week, or not next week, at the next meeting, I will have this information again in front of you, but I thought it might help you to understand some of the terminology, because schools often have their own vocabulary, and we would like to share it with you what else it is. I have one other paper in front of just the board members, and that is, you got this from the West Virginia from the West Virginia School Board Association, and it is a a change from legislation that just occurred. It will become effective July 3rd, and this is information that has changed as a board member. Now you have 12 hours that you're required to have that instead of 7. And then it talks about, the change in the pay rate, which will go to it will change to the 260 that we had voted on to wait till 2026. It now will go as of this year.
90 days after this to July 3rd.
Yeah, or July 3rd.
And they don't want any online training?
And you know, I
I
want you
didn't
to
read all this stuff.
I want you to know, yes, there was one of the articles he sent to you all about the hours that you can get. There were some podcasts that you could watch, and if you watch these podcasts, then you could get some. So I listened to a couple of them because they were through Bowles Rice. The one I listened to on transportation was pretty good. Yeah, so, I mean, I felt it wasn't long, but it was good information. And they talked to the gentleman that's over transportation for the state of West Virginia, was one of the ones I listened to. But he gave you a few of those too as well that you can do. Like even if you listen to a podcast, it can be similar.
So is he gonna supply them?
Yes.
Okay.
And he did in an email to you, but I'll highlight it
Get
to
to
you.
my email, I need to.
Okay, I will help you.
The other thing is, if you would go to the fall and spring conferences, you would get all of these hours as
Yeah.
well.
Yes.
Without any.
Additional
concern.
stuff, yes.
Yeah, no additional would be required, then you're able to
But
sacrifice those 4 days a year, so it's basically,
Yeah.
2 Fridays and, 2 Saturday mornings.
But I just wanted you to look at it on
I
your.
understand.
I just gave you a hard copy of it. It also discusses like your compensation rates and all that stuff. And there are a few changes in it that you may want to look at. So I gave you that as well. The last thing I want you to look at. The last thing I want you to look at is, you have a sheet that looks like this. It's the long sheet, Denny, the larger sheet.
Legal paper.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah, gotcha.
I give this to you annually to let you know that when we are looking at personnel, when we go through personnel season, and when we go through budgeting season, this is kind of gonna tie into what Mrs. Wells does next, that there's a lot of details in it. This particular document even shows you, as we get to the schools, every employee and how we right now are anticipating we will code them to ensure that we can fund the positions that we have. It's just another one of our double checks. So if you look at the very first page of this, it has, when you get the school aid formula and you get information from the school aid formula, they break our personnel down into professional personnel and to professional student support personnel and service employees. And if you look for FY25, what we were funded and what is the preliminary that we're being funded for FY26. So you can see that it's pretty consistent. We're down a little bit in instructional, but we're up in student support. And then in service personnel, it's up 3.64, and that gives you an idea that that's probably for the aides that we're adding to a class. So I just wanted you to see from the state aid that we look at where we were, how consistent we were. The next column, we have a little blue mark out to the right. We normally run and are able to sustain 13, 14, 15, somewhere around in there, employees in excess of what we are funded in professional, and about 15 to 17 for service. And in support, we don't always fill the positions of all the ones that they give us. It does look like last year we only had 3.81. The reason behind that is this is taken off of the certified list, and we had so many positions at that point that had, not this year, but the year, that had subs in them, and they don't count. So we really were 13.8381 over, but it doesn't show that because they weren't counted in the certified list. Does that make sense? Okay. I didn't want you to think I hired 10, 15 extra people. All right. If you look at the back of that sheet, this is the one that you guys normally find interesting. If you look at, and this goes along with what we just did with the levy. If you look at the green column for in the first line, it shows you that from the state aid, they're saying, your total basic program allowance. The basic we're giving you from step 1, 2, 3, 4, step 5, step 6, step 7. Our basic is about 11 million. You see that? Then the next column beside of that is what we get out of our regular levy. You just saw that, that's 4.8. And then last year, there was an adjustment because of a mistake they made, there's no adjustment this year. And so to get the balance to 11 million, that's where the 6 million of state aid formula comes in. Does that make sense? So that's what we're getting in state aid. So it looks like, but we know we're getting more in state aid, which means we're getting less in levy. And that's when I talk to you about that, those are the actual figures. Now that we say actual figures and we use that term lightly because these are the actual preliminary numbers that we've been given. But we also want you to see that we're very much aware of what we are working within our budget and what we can keep consistent and some changes that we need to make. If you look at the next page, this is student enrollment. And the first one is actual numbers as of January 31st of this year. And then we did a projection of where we think we'll be next year. If things that you'll notice that stand out to me is like the middle school's losing 76 kids out of the 8th grade to the high school, but they're getting 94 in. So there are gonna be a few more kids in the middle school, just for the 1 year, and then it goes back down to 8. But there's that one group of kids. You'll see that they're graduating at the high school. They'll graduate this year around 89, and next year they're only getting 76 ninth graders in. So you'll see our projection for the numbers in our schools to the right now. Are these 100%? No, these are projections. What we did was we said, okay, you're in kindergarten this year, next year we're gonna be in first grade. Next year we're gonna be in second grade. We just adjusted the numbers in the second chart so that you could see, what we believe our projection amount is.
Isn't one of the grades that often students are in for more than 1 year, ninth grade, isn't that one of the primary
Sophomore, yeah,
grade?
freshman and sophomore.
Freshman,
So because if they don't get enough credits, because they're credits that you are expected to have, and if you don't have enough, sometimes you end up as a freshman a little bit longer, but because of block scheduling, and that's some of the stuff Chris will go over in his presentation, they have a chance to catch up after the first semester, and that kind of gets caught back up. You also have some adjustments because we need the minimum 1,400, and that's on there as well. Then the next few pages are just what I told you they were.
Can I
It's-
ask a question?
We'll try, yes.
Was there any movement that made it all the way through on adjusting that 1,400, or it stays the same this year?
When I read that, and I read the one that was going through, it was for specific counties that were below. And we weren't one of those, so I didn't pay close attention if it went through. But I will find that out and make sure. On the next page, the next several pages, it is what I told you it was. And it's central office, who we have in every position, and what budget code we're taking them out of, what the contract days are. If there's anything in like a darker blue color, that tells you we've made an adjustment this year on it. We used to have 2 technology integration specialists, we now have 1. And that will kind of let you see if we've made any changes from last year to this year. Our anticipation, in case anyone asks you, we employ or will employ 227 people. We believe that's about the number that we have employed. And then you have 227. If you look to the next, is that right, Lori?
I mean, I didn't know, they put my front sheets wrong.
Oh,
I didn't know that.
Okay. She told me before I
It's
came, I had
pretty close,
247. You look at the next page, that's our cooks and head custodians and stuff for middle school, high school. And then all of the schools are broken down, Ritchie County High School, Ritchie County Middle School, and on each of these pages, it tells you what we anticipate to be in each grade, what we think the class size will be. So as we start looking at, do we have too many teachers in this area, where could we save? This is where we do all of the adjustments for Rifton transfer season. And we were fortunate this year, and we marked on here if there's open positions from retirement, if there's open positions because they're just not filled, all of those are indicated and marked as well. One of the things I do wanna point out at Harrisville, and you will see this later on the agenda, and as you looked at it, you probably already noticed, we have, a large special ed population, that will be served at Harrisville, and we have budgeted to ask for a position there at Harrisville. And I'm gonna ask this evening that you approve that. It is in our budget, in our plan for the upcoming school. So I just wanted to share that with you to let you see that as we move forward, we run a personnel projection to keep it consistent so that it doesn't get out of whack, that we're not able to manage the employees that we have so that we make sure that we're running our school system, using county funds wisely. So, do you have?
29.
Oh, I was off.
I was off by two.
229. 229. So is there any questions about that document? It provides you a lot of information. And I believe, I know that seems like a lot, but I believe that's it. And then that kind of leads us into the next thing, which is the budget workshop. Do you have any questions or concerns?
So when you look at the Harrisville Elementary, the hearing and visually impaired, we don't hire someone now, we just
We
contract that out.
contracted, yes. And it has gone well this year. We have a good person that's working well with our students, and, it is such a hard position to find.
Right,
It's best to
contract,
contract.
makes sense.
Yes. I will tell you one of the things we're looking at, since we are talking about personnel within this, in our extracurricular, we've always used, Mr. Knotts as our trainer, and he has resigned from that position, as you're aware. We are looking at contracting him as well.
Okay, so next we will conduct the fiscal year 26 budget workshop. Mrs. Rose. You following along, Denny?
I sure am.
Wonderful.
So we're gonna go to the folder that I gave you that's kind of got different color paper in it.
Got it
And,
in hand.
okay, good.
Good job.
Okay, so, I'll start with the first section there, which is the revenue. And Jenny, yours may look a little different just because at the very last minute today, we received guidance from the State Department about changing a funding code. It doesn't change the funding source or
But the
anything, just the
numbers will
code,
change.
yeah.
He won't catch it.
Okay.
So, you'll see at the first section there is what we call your general fund, it's Fund 11. And so that has your regular levy, any carryover we're anticipating, interest, and you'll notice there's a $0 there for E-rate. We have since, I believe it was the last board meeting, maybe the one before, where it was approved to have Armstrong as our E-rate. They will be giving it to us, I believe, on a discount on our invoice, rather than giving us the funding afterwards. So it's not that we're not getting it, it's just gonna be on our invoice. And, so then you'll see we have some miscellaneous, and Terra Resources, Medicare reimbursement, and then it starts into our state aid. Anything that says SA out from it is our state aid allocation. So that would be like your step 4 bus replacement, step 7. And then we are required to have a specific, set aside for our state aid that we receive that goes towards charter schools. And that this year is $168,139. And then, we have an allocation that are for PEIA and, RHBT, unfunded retirement and retirement allocation. So your Fund 11 general comes to 24,952,286. Then you have your excess levy, which is 4,738,381. And then the transfer that you see that is a transfer out from our levy into our debt, that's our energy loan, and it's 112,300. And then it'll start Fund 61, and you'll see some of those that look like an orangish color. That is where we are using carryover funds that we're anticipating this year to help offset the cost for personnel for next year. So we're using 25 and 26 funding to cover. So anything in the orange is our carryover. So in that you have special ed, step 7D, staff development, faculty senate funds, alternative ed, community and schools, Title I, Title II, Title IV, federal special ed, preschool, and Title V, and then everything else below that is child nutrition.
So for fun, will you tell us what the initials mean, like what's BB at the top?
Where does it?
The
Beginning balance,
What's the B?
property taxes.
And OL?
Other local source,
Okay, so SA is state aid, so SU.
state unrestricted. Any other quizzes?
That was a good one.
F is federal.
Yeah, I figured F was federal and T is transfer.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
okay, thank you so much.
Mhm.
So our total for operate next year is $33,001,812. So, your first sheet, if you'll look up at the top where it says 227, then it's actually should be 229 total FTE. And then, where it says 159,012, that number is actually 168.27. Sorry, I didn't get those numbers changed on this one. I did on the other ones, but not this one.
It's 160.
It's 168.27 FTE that comes out in general.
Thank you.
So what I've tried to do is similar to last year, so anything that you see in the red is anything that is different from the prior year or that we're adding, or, so pretty much everything is the same as far as salaries and substitute costs, but we are, adding an additional portion there for, personnel in case there's any kind of personnel we need to hire throughout the year. If there wasn't enough for the insurance increase, cause it's not been exactly as PEI has said it's going to be. So we've added an allocation there. Additional costs for substitutes, this is for onboarding training. So with our requirements to have certain training done, this helps us to offset the cost to pay those, to have that training completed. I added in for dental and vision because with our, as you know, with our levy decreasing, this way it helps cover the cost for our dental and vision. Field trip cost, this one we increased it just a little bit to help the schools. Expenditures for mid-year transfers, that is our mid-year transfers if we were to get billed, or like virtual school will bill us for any of our students, let's say in mid-year, like October, November, that decide to go to virtual, then we pick up that portion, they invoice us for those. And then there's expenditures towards charter schools. You'll see it's the same amount as what the state aid allocation was for charter schools.
Where does that money go? I'm curious. How does that work?
It's, what it is just a wash for us. So they take care of something, but we still have to budget it to show that it's there. You know, we don't do anything with it, it just is an in and out kind of thing.
Okay.
But we can't use it for anything,
Well,
but, yeah.
we keep it.
Yeah. So, then we have textbooks. This is in addition to, what we have in the levy to help offset some of that is $75,000. We have budgeted a van for transporting students, when needed, and I know that $25,000 isn't gonna cover the cost, but part of it's gonna come out of the athletics code.
And that's when we don't have enough bus drivers?
Yes, yes.
Most of the things that you see are a change on here are either to cover the cost of an increase that or to say, we've had a need and we can't cover, sometimes we don't have enough drivers, and that might help alleviate an issue with maybe even if it's ag or a sports team.
Or
So
maybe it'd be coaches or advisors that would be driving.
Yes, but we would set policy and expectations prior to the meeting. So this is just a
Placeholder.
placeholder to move forward.
Right.
But I think if we don't start looking at this, we're
Right.
gonna continue to have issues.
I think I've seen a lot more bans at sporting events than in the past.
And we have some teams like the golf team that could go a ban. We've got some you got, maybe a softball team that can take a ban in a car, and you're not putting your parents.
I
in
even
the
thought
car.
about honor band, like
Yeah.
if they have something.
Like they have to go to Charleston to do something like that. We're just looking at it, and then we will look at making sure we have a policy in place and that we meet the expectations with our insurances and things like that. If the board does approve, if you think that's okay, that's just a thought. And another thing that went well this past year with your support was in the levy, we put more money into it for field trips so that we didn't have as many schools having to do fundraisers. And so that was very well received. And so we did that again, and we upped it a little bit because, the cost is that, and we do want our kids to experience some things like trips and things like that. So we add a little bit more to that as well.
And then, the last one on this is technology devices. This is, going towards our refresh of the iPads.
With Mrs. Wagner, we looked at her Tools for Schools funding. We had it set up to also be a part of this so that we don't have to do a lease. We're hoping to have enough set aside to purchase it here like we did this last time. And it will include like Apple Care, and we're just planning ahead. So know that that's coming.
So then, if you flip over to page 2, it's broken down into different areas. So you have your attendance, which is attendance director and supplies, guidance counselors, that's 2, and their travel. And then we have HRA and nurses. I added an extra in here for HRA to help offset the levy costs. Admin, curriculum and instruction director. And then you have, general administration, that is our support service director, professional development, technology information systems. This is, part of the TIS. The other portion is funded out of the levy. Step 7 is our TSSs, and then special projects, which we'll get to that at the end. And then step 7B as well. And then on page 4, we made the adjustment for the, policy that Mrs. Hott just went over a little bit ago, for the for the increase for the payment of board members and also the training days. And, you'll see under general admin expenses, there's the, services for audit, services for legal fees, retiree insurance, fidelity bonds, and then architect and engineering services. And then we have superintendent and central office, and you'll notice in the red, I did reach out to Brem to see if they could give me a quote for next year. She didn't have a quote, but she did tell me it'd be a 10 to 15% increase, so I went ahead and budgeted the additional increase. And then on page 5, it's just continued for, salaries and training and travel. And then we have school administration, this is principals and secretaries. And then we have, finance, this is myself and my office. And, we do have the contracted services for GASB. And then on page 6, at the top, it continues with our, additional expenses for supplies, legal advertising, and then, the other portion, when you see secretaries, that is the school secretaries. Personnel, that's just the personnel director. Custodians, those are our head custodian positions at each of the schools. Maintenance, that is a director and secretary, or director and our maintenance. And also under that is our property insurance. On page 7, under transportation, in the red, you'll see we also allocated an additional amount for end of the year field trip transportation costs. Part of this is also in the levy, but this is to help in case we need additional. And then most of that is salaries and fixed costs. Then we have en route transportation for students and room insurance as well. Page 8, you'll notice in the yellow it says trips and athletics. That is an additional in case if we need it and it's not enough covered in the levy. That way we have something somewhere. Then we have food service. The top line, you'll notice it's $473,953. That is the portion that we, or I say we, but the county would need to put in to help offset the budget for child nutrition and Fund 61 to balance it. And then it'll be special education. Those are teachers and aides and substitutes. Pre-K is the same. On page 9, there's special education services and our speech individuals. Vocational, and that is our ag teacher. Our gifted is 0.6 FTE. The other 0.4 is out of state special ed. And then there's the adult education in there as well. If you turn over to page 10, you'll see the other portion of that van for transporting students is under co-curricular. And then we also added an additional funding source for summer academic program. There is an allocation in the levy, but this is to help offset it. The personal leave incentive, it is a little bit more than I anticipated, so I did increase it. And then our policy 5,000, that is for interviewing. And then we have our reserve for contingencies and transfers. And so the total county budget, that's our general, is $24,952,286. Are there any questions in that before I move on to levy?
So we're required to have at least a 3 to 5% contingency, and we are currently sitting at a 5%, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Good to move on?
Yep.
Okay. So now it should be in the green papers.
Green pages today.
Aren't you glad I dropped those by?
I am, yes.
Can he hear me?
Can you hear?
Can you hear her?
I can, yes, I can hear.
Okay. So on this one, I did try to note up at the top that due to the decrease, we are not able to fund 6.84 positions as we were prior year in the excess levy. So that either the county has picked up a portion of that, or we try to utilize carryover and Fund 61 to offset it. So you have your regular instruction teachers, you have kindergarten aides, social worker, a counselor, a nurse, speech. There's the 0.85 for the tests. Custodians, those are the rest of your custodians. Special ed teachers, pre-K aides, and alternative education. And then for the rest of the personnel or salary section in our levy is athletic coordinator, coaching, and band. And down at the bottom, you'll notice that professional services for athletic trainer, we did go ahead and budget that allocation that was towards salaries to the athletic trainer contract if we were able to get one. So total for salaries for professional service and athletics is $1,940,692. So then, moving on to page 13 at the top is dental, vision, and health reimbursement, and we have $210,000 there. Athletic and band supports, and I forgot to put those in red, but you'll notice that there's turf maintenance for football, softball, and baseball fields, and it's $6,300, and then turf maintenance and cleaning, that was just track maintenance and cleaning, that was an estimate of $3,000, we're still looking into that, but we just estimated it. So towards athletics and band supports is $75,000. Then we have levy, instructional supplies, materials, and equipment. So a portion of the copier lease and the copy paper and the staples and maintenance for that comes out of the levy. Office supplies, that's for each school to have a certain allocation towards their office supplies. Classroom supplies, that's at the discretion of the principal. Spring orders, next year, it's looking about approximately $370 a teacher at each of those locations. And then on page 14, there's a furniture allocation. We have one for drama, band, playground equipment, physical education, music, art, and technology. So the total towards instructional supplies, materials, and equipment is $120,000. Textbooks, workbooks, and technology. What comes out of here is anything that is for instructional use, so any of our digital support programs for technology, for our schools for instruction. And then we have textbooks and the subscriptions for textbooks. So $257,366. School safety, we have the PRO officers, and something additional that we had discussed about doing is uniform cost for our service. And so we have cook's uniforms under school safety measures as well, so that total is $52,000. Maintenance, we have custodial uniforms and maintenance uniforms, which was added this year. And custodial supplies, we have the gym floor refinishing, which was in there last year as well. And then we have our maintenance, when you see Operation Heroes, that is our maintenance work order system and inventory.
So when you have two lines and they both are middle school, high school, is that refinishing on both floors?
Yeah, when you see 302, that's middle school, and 501 is high school.
Okay, so is
Yeah.
that a planned thing that the high school floor will be replenished or something like that?
Yes, they'll get done every spring.
But as far as the,
Is
taking it all the way down,
No,
it's not.
permanent.
But
Okay.
we have an allocation in there this year that will roll over towards
Okay.
this.
Okay.
To help keep adding.
So that when it gets to the time when it's time to, when it gets to the time when it's ready to be completely
we'll
stripped,
have it,
we'll have the money.
Right, I guess,
Is that the
just,
question?
just a note for the future when that time comes, there's been a lot of requests on the high school floor that the half court line be darker.
Oh, God, it's a white line.
There's a lot of requests for that, I don't know if you all have heard them, but.
The white is difficult to see.
Right.
She's right.
So on page 16 continues our maintenance, and this is our utilities and mowing, and then our transportation, and you'll see transportation uniforms as well. And so the total for maintenance and transportation and custodial is $1,394,500. And then on page 17 is the transportation section of the levy, and so there's a portion that goes towards multi and extracurricular instructional transportation costs. Then there is a section there that goes towards the athletics transportation cost, and then there's also a section there that you'll see is field trip driver costs. And then, there's an allocation towards capital improvements of $96,200. There is vocational, which is our multi cost, $125,000. The extension office, $30,000. And then you'll notice in red is the after-school and summer learning programs and at-risk students, because it starts our new levy next year. This was included in our new levy, so the allocation there is $210,000, and then the transfer out for our levy. And so the total levy budget is $4,738,381. So the total for Fund 11 is $29,690,667. Any questions before moving to the pink section?
When are we getting the energy loan paid for, sorry?
What did you say?
I'm sorry, girl, the energy, loan paid off.
Oh, I'm gonna have to look at that, it's still
Feels
got
like
some
we've been
years.
paying them.
Well, probably, and then we refinanced it, and you have to do it so long before you can actually pay it off. Okay, so Fund 61 is the pink copies. So you'll see that if it was carryover out from the title, it does say carryover on it so that you know it's this year's funds getting carried over to help offset the cost. So there's carryover in special ed, state special ed that goes towards special education aids. Then there's next year's allocation of state special ed, and that will be the other portion of the gifted teacher there. And then we have carryover for community and schools, and then we have the allocation next year for community and schools. So community and schools part, .426 is out of carryover, 3.67 is out of next year's, and then there's a portion that's also in Title I, in case you add those and they don't add up. And then there's alternative ed carryover, that goes towards the high school alternative ed. And there's alternative ed, that goes towards middle school and high school for next year's allocation. Then we have step 7D teacher and leader induction. This is based on, our strategic plan and how the strategic plan is written, and that's how those funds come out of there. Then it starts our federal projects on page 20. So you have Title II, which is towards professional development, tuition reimbursement and software and stipends for PD. We have Title I, and so you'll notice in the orange, that is kind of a placeholder for me so that I know next year we need to budget it in that funding, but we don't have to pay it this coming year because we're gonna use carryover funds to pay it. And then page 21 is Title IV, that is alternative education teacher as well for the middle school, another portion. And Title V is alternative education teacher for the high school, another portion of it. And then there's federal special ed carryover, and there's federal special ed for next year, FY26. And on page 22 is our preschool allocation for next year that funds .345 of a teacher, and then starts our child nutrition as well for food service. So total for special project budget on page 23 is $3,311,145. So the overall total is $33,001,812. And your last two pages.
Your email you got today about this, it's about this section, correct?
Yes.
Would you like to share that?
Sure. So, got an email from Uriah Cummings today that said that most likely, when he was talking to the federal department, that they will not know anything until after July 1st as far as allocations. So they said anticipate budget changes and updates. So it could be what we think it may be, and it could be less, but usually they have an idea at least by now or May, and they're not getting any information.
So when we budgeted this, we budgeted it for 10% less?
10% less.
Thinking, okay, that will at least be not anticipating. Remember, we're playing in preliminary numbers, and some of the numbers aren't being released to us because of things that are happening nationwide. So this is our plan, but we will let you know as it gets released to us.
So then the last two pages there are the breakdown of how step 7 and step 7B are budgeted. And so in step 7, we have, like I said, the 2 TSS positions. And then you'll see project 2, those are our coordinators, those are like our social studies fair, our spelling bee coordinators, those type of individuals. we have transition camp, we have an additional for vocational for Mob Tie, if we were to go over our allocation. Homebound instruction, we did the West Virginia virtual courses, and we did an ESL teacher supplement and, Mountaineer Challenge too. And then on Project 3, this is, all of our, technology software that's needed, like, that's non-instructional, that's helpful to operate the school system, if that makes sense. And then Project 4 is substitute costs for PD, and then, Project 5 is the portion, the rest of the portion for our copier services and paper, calendars, end of the year snacks for testing, and then PSAT testing. And then in step 7B, in the red, is an additional, $125,000 to help go towards the cost of iPad refresh. So are there any questions?
I think when you look at this, you can see that there's already been significant efforts to have an efficiency of operations. A small example of that would be the minimal cost for a sub-calling system and for attendance calling, which would be an entire salary for someone to be able to handle all the calls that would be necessary. So I think that using technology to be more efficient is a good plan, and I would see that in place.
And one of the things we did this year, as we were, the more you do this, the more you think through this, we make sure that if it was instruction, it hit all together, and if it was operational, it hit all together. So that as we, and then we sat down as a group and we evaluated, Mrs. Wells pulled up every piece of software that we have that renews. We looked at them, looked at the dates they were coming available, looked if they were embedded, if they were being used. If they weren't, we got rid of them. And so we did a really deep dive to make sure that if we were buying a product, we were using that product. And if we weren't using it, then we didn't continue, or if we needed to have like maybe more training on something that we had that we thought it would be beneficial, or do we have the right contract? So we spent a long period of time with directors making sure that products that we are purchasing are valuable and that we're getting our money out of them. And I think that will be a good practice moving forward, because we've created a shared spreadsheet that allows us to check that and double check to make sure that it's kept up.
Are we adopting any new textbooks or anything this year?
This year it is preschool and it is social studies, and that will come in front of you in May. The state determines what's up next, and that's the ones we're doing this year. Preschool in the past, we've only had ever one choice, which was creative curriculum. This year there were 2 choices, so we're still looking and examining. And then social studies, I know the high schools made the decision, and we're the committees are almost ready to make the recommendation.
I don't know what next year's is.
There's a part of me that thinks it's science, because I'm starting to
I
get.
think that was
I'm starting to get questions about science and people sending me things about science books, so I'm thinking that may be it, but I'm not sure.
So on page 15, there's a list of several of 15 in green. Yeah, 15 in green. Several different softwares. iReady isn't there, is it somewhere else?
Yes. iReady is covered under,
No, it is there. It's Curriculum Associates.
oh, yes, it
That's
is.
the name of the company, Curriculum
Oh, Curriculum
Associates.
Associates.
Yes.
Good to know.
Or something similar.
It used to be in another federal programs,
Yes,
wasn't it? And
it
we-
was split, yeah.
And it was split, we quit splitting it, and
Okay.
it's there, yes.
Alright.
So we are,
It's just not labeled.
it's not
That's
labeled.
right.
That was a good catch.
I was just curious,
You
because
guys
I
are-
know
you
iReady is
guys-
used a lot.
You guys are good.
Not that I have a child on the countdown to the end of his iReady career in 8th grade, but possibly too.
I'm right there with you. I'm a parent waiting for it.
I got a question on the 95% group, once I get to, where does that fall in here?
So 95% group falls under Title II, or it could fall under Step 7D. Because those are professional services, and they continue with professional development too, going into the schools.
And it's behind you.
Yeah, it's a big charge on some of these payment of bills, and I was just seeing where it fell on here, like, how much was each year's budget for that?
I think that if you ask the elementary principals, it has had a huge impact on the youth.
Yeah.
It's been very, and it's been, very
And that's
in-depth.
coaching for teachers.
Yes.
So what is
Besides
that
a brief
line item, or is that at?
It's not specifically laid out because with it being over a certain dollar amount, you have to get 3 bids or quotes, so we can't really specify that it's 95% group.
Oh, no, I meant like,
What line
one
item?
second.
Where are you gonna pay for that?
Oh, it'll either be a mix between Title II or if you turn to Step 7D allocation. Trying to find Step 7D. Step 7D will be in your pink. Yeah. So we have still carryover for Step 7D that we will be utilizing probably next year too, a lot.
So that's probably under professional services.
Yes.
And it's listed that way under most sections, so.
You guys are asking great questions. I mean that. That means you've listened.
I don't mind it. I'm
They've
glad I
listened
can
to the
answer.
principals, they've listened to the vocabulary, they got it.
It's, yeah, I saw like copier services was like 70,000. It is crazy that we spend that on that as digital as we are now still.
No, we feel like paper.
Yeah, I mean, look
We
at
as
all the
people,
paper.
not just the school system.
Yeah, I know. It's a crazy number.
Or cheap.
Oh, yeah,
It
my
probably
kids-
used to, well,
my
I
kids
would say
get
it probably
worse
used to
than
be
that.
worse, cause it was probably not as expensive as it is now. That's that supply demand issue we learned in economics, they can make it more expensive now, it's less than it's cheap. That's not even right, is it?
It's your supply.
Yes.
Alright, any other questions?
Great job on that.
Yeah, very thorough, thank you very much. Alright, next we have the consent agenda. And
On the consent, we'll go to the consent agenda. I ask that you approve one employee for teacher coverage. Also a retro approve of an art class out-of-state travel, as well as the senior class, which will travel out-of-state to Cedar Point on May 13th. And then an agreement between Ritchie County Schools, Communities and Schools and World Vision. I ask that you approve it. It's an agreement we've been in before, we just needed to renew. And then we have a young lady needing to do some field placement hours, but we have to also approve, that we are working with her university. So I ask that you approve the consent items as listed on the agenda.
we have a motion for approval of for the consent agenda as stipulated on the record. Mr. Hall makes the motion, Mr. Reed will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next we have resignation.
We have two resignations, Austin Jones as the head golf coach at Ritchie County High School and Hope Hart as a substitute teacher. I ask that you approve those as stated on the record.
Superintendent is recommending that we approve the resignations as stipulated on the record. Here we have a motion for approval. Mrs. King makes the motion, and we have a second from Mr. Reed. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have employments and other.
The first one is that I mentioned it to you as we were going through the budget, that we need to have approval to post an extra LDBD, IDD, inclusion autism teacher at Harrisonville Elementary School for the next school year, and to approve, a Family Medical Leave Act as stated there. C, D, and G are our retired teachers, service personnel that were going to come back and sub for us. I ask that you approve those. Jim White is moving back to his bus. He went to a bus, he's now going back to his first bus. Yes, that's right. That's the, yes. That's the, Damian Grinter is a new substitute custodian. that we would like you to approve. Chaselyn Jones wants to be the assistant cross-country coach. We appreciate that. She's helping out, I think, with softball. And Ryan Hott, please retroact him as an approved certified non-paid assistant track coach. I ask that you approve those.
I would like to request that we have a brief executive session to discuss personnel. We do have a motion to enter into executive session. Mr. Hall makes the motion and Mrs. King will second. The time is 7:07. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Alright, we will go into executive session briefly. Cindy, I'm gonna take your call.
28, do we have a motion to return to regular session? Mr. Hall makes the motion, Mr. Reed will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously, 728. Hall and Reed. So, we did have employments, 3A through I. Do we have a motion for approval? Mrs. King makes the motion, Mr. Reed will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have reemployment for the 25-26 school year for professional and service probationary employees.
I asked you to keep those as the list that you were provided.
Superintendent is recommending that we approve the list that we were provided. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Hall makes the motion, Mrs. Key will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And next, we have the payment of bills in the amount of $525,619.90. Do we have a motion for approval? Mr. Reed makes the motion, Mr. Hall will second. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Next, we have financial requests for approval.
We just ask that you approve the FY '26 proposed budget to be placed on public inspection.
Do we have a motion for approval of the budget to be placed on public inspection? Mrs. King makes the motion. Mr. Reed will second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
The motion passes unanimously. Do we have any agenda items for the next board meeting? Any board member committee reports? Alright, our next regular meeting will be held on April 28th at 6 p.m. at the Ritchie County Board of Education office, and it will include our annual meeting with Ritchie County High School Local School Improvement Council for West Virginia Code 18-5-14. The time is 7:31. Do we have a motion for adjournment? Mr. Hall makes the motion, Mrs. Key will second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned. Thank you, Denny.
Thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Get over here the next